Do me a favor. Think of a bridge. You got it? I'm sure we can all pretty easily imagine a bridge in our minds. A long strip of road that's suspended by a few large, tall columns. There's iron, beams, some sort of arch, cables of some kind. I'm pretty sure you have a clear mental image of a bridge in your mind right now. As clear as the image of the bridge may be in your head, I'm almost positive for most of us, it's not an exact photographic version. You're most likely not able to count every cable on that imaginary bridge or identify various types of cars that are crossing it. That's what a photograph or a video is for. An image that you can pause and look at and inspect every little detail of, for as long as you want. It's one of the things that makes photography so interesting and satisfying. It seems like it's only one level removed from reality, allowing you to relive certain moments or explore places you've never been. Comic illustration is slightly different. When done right, it can also make you feel like you are very much in the specific environment that the artist is illustrating. But it does it in a different way. As comic artists, we're illustrating how our minds imagine certain things, rather than how our eyes process the specific reality in front of us. In that way, comic art, along with other forms of drawing, painting, and sculpture, is an abstraction of reality, no matter how realistically that reality is depicted. On the spectrum of abstraction, there are various levels that an artist can choose to portray their version of reality. On one end, there's the heavily rendered and textured approach. This can be fully painted comics that closely mimic lighting and shadow effects one might observe in reality. This can also mean quite a bit of hatching and cross-hatching, as well as other varied line inking techniques. There can be a real blend of solid black areas as well as finer, more broken up areas in this approach. Sometimes there's a rough grittiness to this way of abstracting reality. On the other end of the spectrum is the more graphic approach, trading the finer lines and hatching for a more high contrast look. Think of the levels tool in Photoshop, taking all the light areas in an image and turning them into white, and then taking all the darker areas and turning them into black. This approach creates a more simplified look, but in no way is any easier to execute. Since comic art is primarily a storytelling tool, every mark you make on a page is there to communicate something to the reader, whether consciously or unconsciously. The level of detail at which you draw a character, for instance, results very much in how the reader identifies with that character. In his book Understanding Comics, Scott McCloud makes the case that when you look at a photo or a realistic drawing of a character, you see it as other. Why is that? He argues that when we interact with others in person, we see their features in vivid detail, which is much different than the awareness we hold in our minds of our own face. Although we feel like we understand exactly what our own face looks like, this mind picture is not nearly as vivid as the one we have when we look at others, or when we're looking into a mirror or a photograph of ourselves, for instance. It's just a sketchy arrangement and general placement, much like the simple graphic design of a cartoon, or like that general image of the bridge we imagined. If we were to just take stills from a movie and place them on a page in sequential order, they wouldn't necessarily have the same effect as comics do. Why? Because we relate differently to the vivid detail of photographs and film than we do to these abstractions we call comic art. It's much easier to identify with abstractions of people because ultimately, that's closer to the mental picture we keep of ourselves. Now, is Scott McCloud's philosophy the be-all, end-all? Probably not. I'm sure there has been effective ways of telling a story with just photographic stills, but it does give us some insight into why historically some of the most relatable and popular characters are more of an abstraction as opposed to a perfectly accurate representation. Anyway, hopefully this gives you something to think about the next time you're designing a character for one of your comics. As always, thanks so much for watching. Comment down below if you have any thoughts or questions on this topic, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.